And it is a similar scene in Chicago. Violence escalating between protesters and ICE agents here. A woman was shot after she allegedly attempted to hit federal officers with her car. Then in Broadview, Illinois, that's about a half-hour west of the city, the Department of Homeland Security is reporting that law enforcement officers were rammed by vehicles and boxed in by 10 cars. That's where we find News Nation's Mills Hayes.
Now, meanwhile, DHS is speaking out after a woman was shot by federal law enforcement officers after allegedly trying to ram Border Patrol agents with her car. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem posting on X saying, quote, members of our brave law enforcement were attacked, rammed, and boxed in by 10 vehicles, including an attacker with a semi-automatic weapon, adding that she is deploying more special operations to control the scene. The FBI is investigating, and the woman is in critical condition at the hospital.
All right, so we got to talk about what's going on in the city of Chicago. As you just heard right there, a woman was shot. She was armed, trying to take agents out with her vehicle. Another situation where agents are boxed in by multiple cars. You don't know what can end up unfolding in that type of situation when you're an agent and you're being boxed in by multiple vehicles. It could end up resulting in a shootout. Who knows? You don't know how crazy these protesters can get. And reports are showing that, and I'll bring this up real quick right here. Reports are showing that this is the woman in question who was shot by Border Patrol agents after trying to run them over, after trying to attack them with her vehicle. Federal troops are being deployed to cities like Chicago for a reason. They aren't there for the sights and the attractions of tourism, to grab a beef sandwich and a deep dish pizza. They're there because people who weren't supposed to be there in the first place, when states like Texas wanted to enforce border laws but weren't allowed to, and so they decided that they're going to ship these people, we're going to put them in buses and we're going to ship them to these sanctuary states, these sanctuary cities, and now they're going to be your problem. And so now federal troops are being deployed because these people don't want to leave willingly, and so now they have to be removed. And when you have leadership in cities like Chicago with Mayor Brandon Johnson and the governor who want to take the side of the illegal immigrant rather than actually what's best for their city, this is what you end up with.
That incident here early this morning was followed by hours of tense clashes between protesters and federal authorities, where we saw tear gas and several other chemical agents deployed multiple times.
Federal immigration operations continue to escalate in neighborhoods across Chicago as 2 people are now in custody for allegedly ramming into federal vehicles. DHS says that happened this morning near Pershing and Kedzie while federal agents were patrolling streets in Brighton Park.
DHS says the officers got out of their vehicles and a suspect allegedly tried to run them over, forcing the officers to fire their weapons. One woman was shot in the incident, and DHS says that woman was armed with a gun. The department also says that woman was named in a Border Patrol intelligence bulletin last week for allegedly doxing federal agents online.
With helmets and batons, a phalanx of Cook County Sheriff's officers keep demonstrators from blocking the street in a tense standoff capping a day of protest. This all playing out at 25th Avenue and Harvard in Broadview in a new de facto protest zone that's not within sight of the ICE processing center.
They're setting up a free speech area or whatever they said this was supposed to be. But I thought all of America was free speech.
Earlier, federal agents shortly after 9 a.m. moved on protesters near that same intersection. Demonstrators seen on the ground being detained as agents pushed people off the street to clear a path for DHS Secretary Kristi Noem to leave. Earlier, she was on the roof of the ICE building with video crews, including conservative YouTuber Benny Johnson, who posted video of Noem talking about the protesters.
What they are doing is advocating to harm not just you and your colleagues, but your families.
We're going to roll them all the way out of here, and when they resist, what happens? They get arrested. So it's now going to be a free arrest zone.
That clash occurred despite a beefed-up presence of Illinois State Police and sheriff's officers, who Governor J.B. Pritzker says are there to ensure the safety of demonstrators, neighbors, and third parties who need to access the ICE facility in the wake of violent encounters involving federal agents.
You are losing rights. You are becoming less American. They are stealing our country from us.
At least 5 protesters were arrested by state and local law enforcement for resisting or battering officers. But Chopper 7 captured another dozen or so demonstrators in apparent federal custody following.
It's so important you are aware and you're careful where you get your information from, because for a lot of these mainstream media, a lot of these stories from these leftists, it's always a spin job. It's always exaggerated. For example, let me bring this up right here. Just look at this. From CBS News Chicago, it says federal agents throw tear gas canister from SUV on busy Chicago street. Now, we're going to play how the news reported it, and then we're going to also just play the raw footage so you could actually see what really happened and what they failed to mention inside the newscast.
But first, in our area, the immigration crackdown ramps up. We have team coverage from outside the Broadview ICE facility and in Logan Square, where federal agents were seen throwing tear gas cans. That's where we find our Charlie DeMar live for us. Charlie.
And Erica, videos widely circulating online show what you just described. Federal agents appear to be throwing tear gas out of their car window. It happened just before noon. We're near the intersection of Central Park and Armitage, and it also happens to be in front of Funston Elementary School. And I want to give you an idea, a sense of what is happening here. We have seen a number of community members, dozens of them, showing up here around dismissal time. They are here as kids have been getting out of school and making sure that they get home safely. We have seen a number of these volunteers walking kids home who tell me that they're walking these specific kids home whose parents don't feel comfortable coming to get their kids from school today. But I want to give you a look at the video from this morning. Yeah, a chaotic scene here in Logan Square. That cell phone video shows what is believed to be federal immigration agents throwing tear gas from their SUV. It happened before noon. Again, we're in Logan Square. It's near the Rico Fresh grocery store, and there is also this elementary school here. And just within the last hour, we received surveillance video that shows an overhead view of what happened. You can see that the streets begin to fill with smoke and people
you still see the motorcycle right there, not moving.
Now, after this incident cleared and the federal agents left, the community, they showed up in a big way here at Funston Elementary ahead of dismissal school to help get these students home. We spoke to a woman who says she witnessed the incident and was also a victim of that gas.
I don't know if it was tear gas or smoke bombs or what the proper terminology is, but those went off, and as soon as it hit my face and hit my eyes, I knew that I couldn't be out in it, and so I just ran back and got in my car. Eventually the traffic sort of dispersed and I was able to get home safely. I feel sad for my neighbors. I feel anxious about the future.
And so before I point out the obvious, let's take a look at the actual raw footage captured by someone on the street when this occurred, and then I'll come back. And so let's check this out. And so what you guys just saw right there was something the news failed to mention, where the motorcycle was blocking the federal vehicle from being able to move freely on public streets. Now, in the clip earlier I played for you guys, it mentioned how multiple vehicles were blocking in federal troops from being able to exit the Broadview facility. And so now this is what we're seeing happen more, where whether it's protesters or people who just don't agree with ICE, they're obstructing when they see these federal troops, when they see these agents, because they have their mask or whatever, and they recognize them in their vehicles. What they're doing now is they're slamming on their brakes, or they're stopping their car right in front of them, and they're not moving, and allowing them to be able to go do their job. And my question is, what does that do? What does it do, and what does it accomplish for you to block the vehicle as if they're not going to eventually get you to move? Other than you creating more chaos, and now you'll have the news try to spin it as if, well, federal agents, they just let tear gas out on a local street by a school because they're just here to create more chaos.
DHS says that CBP officers shot and wounded a woman in Chicago yesterday after, they say, she allegedly rammed a law enforcement vehicle, and agents were boxed in by multiple cars. The spokesperson for DHS, Tricia McLaughlin, accused Chicago police of leaving the scene and refusing to assist agents in securing the area. What do you know about this incident? Were federal agents boxed in and assaulted?
Well, we don't have a lot of facts. What happens in these sorts of incidents is typically ICE puts out a press release before anybody else can speak with the press, and then it gets reported on social media and elsewhere. Remember, these are the same folks who killed a person, unarmed person, just a couple of weeks ago in Franklin Park. At first, they said that the officer had been threatened with his life. The reality of it and the truth of it has now come out, and that wasn't the case. They killed somebody. So here, it's really hard to know exactly what the facts are, and they won't let us access the facts. They are just putting out their propaganda, and then we've got to later determine what actually happened.
And so just so you guys are aware of what he's talking about, the situation in Franklin Park had to do with the man who was pulled over, an illegal immigrant, and whether it was because he panicked or whether it's because he knew that he had been caught, whatever the reason is, he tried to then flee the agents. And as a result, he ended up actually hitting one of the agents with his vehicle, dragging him several feet, and the agent then shot him. And so he's using that as his basis, as an excuse for this situation involving a woman who attacked agents with her vehicle and saying, well, you know, that's propaganda. Here's the thing. Leadership in these liberal-run cities, they've been warned about this by the president for some time now. This is what he said he was going to do, whether you agree with it or not. This is what he said he was going to do. This is what he ran on during the election, to be able to remove these people from the country. Need reminding, who came into this country in droves, in millions, by millions, each and every month. We saw for months on end this occurring from the previous administration, who opened up the floodgates, and states like Texas weren't allowed to do a thing as far as securing their borders. And as a result, they said, you know what? Okay, we got something for you. So they loaded them up on buses and they shipped these people off to these sanctuary cities. And now they became the problem for them to deal with. All of 2023, leading into 2024, we saw countless people complaining, talking to their elected officials, saying, we don't want these people here. How are you allowing these people to cut the line, come into this country, come into our city, gain access to public resources, and we don't get help? You had Chicago citizens going to City Hall, frustrated with their mayor, frustrated with the leadership, because they had people who weren't citizens in their country allowed to come and allowed to gain access to resources that the people who've been there, who pay their taxes, can't get access to. And so now the president is doing exactly what he said he was going to do as far as cleaning things up and removing these people. And it's not going to look pretty. It's not going to look good, especially when you have a mainstream media that wants to try and paint things and create a certain narrative. And that's why it's important that you really just be careful when it comes to the information that you digest. But guys, let me know your thoughts and feedback on this topic down below. I appreciate when you guys chime in, and stick around for the next video, where after a protester in Portland gets knocked out after stepping to the wrong man in front of the ICE facility. You'll see that video pop up next, so stay tuned.